amazing session on StudPro 5.0 related to StudPro 5.0, which is organized by IEEE Young Professionals Sri Lanka. So, session in transition is a session on job transition. It is all about job transitioning. So, without wasting much time, let's move to today's agenda. Before that, I cordially invite the Vice Chairperson of StudPro 5.0, Mr. Sahan Ediravira, to welcome the gathering. Mr. Sahan, the spotlight is on you.
Okay. Thank you, Bimasha. I suppose you can hear me. Bimasha?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Okay. Hold on. I have a bit of a technical issue. You can see me, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the organizing committee, I warmly welcome you all to StudPro 5.0 in transition, a session on job transitions. That is, shifting of engineering degree holders to IT side or any other side, presented by IEEE Young Professionals Sri Lanka. I'd like to extend a special welcome to our speaker today, Mr. Vipula Lianarachi and Dr. Dhammika Kaduwa, who will be sharing the experiences on having transition on your career field. Thank you, Mr. Vipula and Dr. Dhammika, for accepting our invitation and taking the time out of a busy schedule to join us. Also, it's my great pleasure to welcome the chairman of IEEE Sri Lanka section, Professor Pradeep Abeygunawardena, and all the executive members of the IEEE Sri Lanka section. Then, I'd like to welcome IEEE Young Professionals Sri Lanka chairman, Mr. Dhammika Marasinghe, Student Activities Committee chairman, Mr. Chamika Sudasinghe, as well as the sectional student representative, Mr. Vidura Bandara. Last but not least, I warmly welcome all the attendees who are here with us today. StudPro 5.0 brought you a whole variety of workshops and other valuable events to prepare to put your best foot forward in your future interviews. And its career fair is around the corner. Before we get started, I'd like to express my sincere appreciation to all who has generously helped us to come here and to become a success. I hope that you all will be left with something of value for your journey ahead. Once again, I welcome you all to the session and I wish you all to have a great time here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sahan. So, moving on with today's agenda, we have our two speakers to today's session. So, Dr. Dhammika Kaduwa is an experienced lecturer currently working at the University of Peradeniya. He also acquired his Bachelor's of Science degree in Electrical and Electronics Engineering from the University of Peradeniya. He then completed his PhD in Computer Engineering at the University of New South Wales, Australia. So, Dr. Dhammika Kaduwa here with us for the first speaker for today's session. So, sir, the spotlight is onto you. The session is yours.
Hi, thank you, Vimasha. And so first of all, thank you very much for inviting me for this session. And I do apologize. I have a problem with my camera, so you'll not be able to see me, but I look a bit like that photo. But it was taken some time back, so a bit older than that, but that's how I look. So the topic of the day, I think, so the question of whether you want to transfer from engineering degrees to IT. So I think first we need to clarify this term IT because it's very loosely used all over the world. So if you think about what an IT job really means, it's not like maybe operating a call center or maybe, doing some data entry for a company. That is what an IT job really means if you look at it from a very theoretical point of view. But I'm pretty sure that's not what you're talking about. You're talking about jobs like software engineering, maybe network engineering, so system admin, DevOps kind of stuff. I'm going to assume that is what you mean by IT. So I'm going to talk about it assuming that is what you mean by IT. But yeah, so I was actually just looking at, now you presented a kind of a profile of me, and as you said, my first degree is in engineering, is in electrical and electronics engineering, and then I did my PhD in computer engineering. So switching from from engineering, especially electrical and electronics engineering, to IT, as I said, I'm using the word very lightly, and what I mean is really computing, right? Say computer programming, that sort of area is very easy, right? And the other speaker, I just went to LinkedIn and I was just looking at his profile, and his bachelor's is from Moratu, and again in electronics and telecommunication. Right. So switching from, if your degree is electrical, then of course, obviously there's no, like, that's a natural sort of a transition, right? And even if your degree is not in electrical, I think what we need to understand is what does it, like these engineering degrees, what does it really teach you, right? So if you, now we typically call them engineering degrees, you're doing a bachelor's in engineering, but if you look at the degree title, it's very important to understand the meaning of this degree title. Now, the degree offered by all the state universities, the engineering degree offered by, say, Peradeniya, Moratuwa, all these other, Jaffna, and everyone who is offering a engineering degree, the title goes as, listen to me very carefully, the title goes as Bachelor of the Science of Engineering. Right? So bachelor's basically means it's the first degree, and the first degree is on the science of engineering. Right? So there's a science for doing engineering. Right? So what this science means is sort of, looking at a problem and maybe trying to model it in using mathematics, and then solving it, figuring out the boundary conditions, figuring out the social impact of this, figuring out the money aspects, how, like, the managing the project and all that, and then obviously deploying. Right? So what we are really teaching is that science. Right? The engineering degrees always focus on that science aspect. And from there, if you want to come to the IT field, right? Again, I reiterate, I'm talking about, the sort of the computer engineering, computer science, sort of software engineering kind of jobs. Then there's not much of a difference. That it's exactly the same thing that you're doing there, right? You have a problem, you try to model it. Maybe the modeling tools are different, right? Say if you're a mechanical student, your modeling tool might almost always would be partial differential equations, right? But in a computer system, you might be using some discrete mathematical structures to model your problem, right? But the idea of capturing the problem in a mathematical model and then trying to solve it and figuring out how to implement this, right? So that basic core, that basic science of it would remain, right? So in my opinion, there's not much of a difference. It's just the tools are different, right? The concepts are the same. You model the problem, figure out the solution, figure out the social impacts, issues, cost, and all that, and implement it, right? So if you come to IT field, there's no difference. Exactly the same thing that you're doing, but your tool who has gone through the training of an engineering degree, learning another tool is nothing. You can basically do it, right? So that's my first comment on it. And the second point that I wanted to make is, if you look at how these fields actually evolved. Now, at the very beginning of engineering, you had civil and military, right? So that's how the term civil engineering came in, right? So civil engineers were looking at putting up civil structures, from from buildings to bridges and so on. And the military side, they were interested in electronics, telecom, and mechanical engineering because they had vehicles and blah, blah. Right. And then when the field grew, right, so different fields then evolved, like mechanical went in another direction. So you basically had three fields, right? Civil, mechanical, and electronics. Right. So likewise, when these fields evolved out, they became fields of their own. Right. Now, if you look at computing, it's actually originates from inside electrical and electronics. Right. So if you look at most of the universities in the world, the degrees offered, so-called IT degrees, are actually offered by electrical and electronics departments. Right. So you have most of, like, maybe it's slightly different here in Sri Lanka. We have separate, say, computer science and engineering, so yeah, departments. But essentially, it grew out of electronics. Right. So when electronics sort of evolved, people figured out, it's fairly easy to program a microcontroller than doing analog electronics, because it's awfully painful. So it's sort of a natural transition from there. Right. So that's the second point that I wanted to make. And the third point that I want to make is the training that you get when you study engineering. What you are really studying is, as I said, the science of the engineering. Right? You're looking at a science, a methodical way of figuring out what a problem is, how to solve the problem, and how to implement that particular problem. Right? So you're trained to look at it in a certain way. Right? So that training would be very highly beneficial. For example, if you look at my batch, I graduated many years ago. I don't think maybe 5% is still in engineering. Others have moved on to various different fields, from management to even stock markets, what do you call these, investors kind of stuff. Right? So they have moved into very different fields. Why? Because that scientific training that they're getting, right, the training of looking at a problem in an abstract sense, trying to solve it, you can apply it to any field. Right? So I'm saying, obviously you can go from engineering to IT, but from engineering you can move on to many other different fields. Right? So if you look at management, in fact, there are a lot of successful managers who started off as engineers. Right? Obviously, you might need a bit of training to get there, but yeah. So that's what I wanted to say at the very beginning. Maybe depending on the questions, I can add a little bit more. So just to wrap up, going from engineering to IT is IT in the sense of computer sort of science and sort of software engineering, network engineering. That is what I'm calling as IT. So going from engineering into that is a no-brainer. You definitely can do it. Right? It's the same thing that you're practicing. It's the same science that you're practicing, but your tool set is slightly different. So it's just a question of learning these tool set. Right? So have no issues at the very beginning. Maybe at your first interview, maybe you might not know these tool chains. Right? You might know the tools that are required for your whatever the domain that you study, but learning those tools is a fairly easy thing. Right? Yeah. So that's Vimasha. I think that's what I wanted to say at the very beginning.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. We have time for Q&A session also. So if you have any questions, you can put them in chat box or unmute yourself and ask that thing from our guest speaker, Dr. Dhamika Kadua. Now your time. I think we can have 1 more minute for this thing. If you have any questions, you can put that into chat box. I think with the silence, we don't have questions. So thank you for that informative session. So our organizing committee would like to pay our gratitude and thank you for this informative session. On behalf of organizing committee, I would like to request you to accept our virtual token of appreciation for your session.
Thank you, Bimasha, and thank you, organizing committee, for inviting me.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. So moving on, we have another speaker for today's session. He has over 20 years of experience as a in multiple global engineering enterprise career to software and also maintain what kind of things companies are doing support such students. So Mr. Vipula Lianarachi, it's your time. The floor is yours.
Yes, Bimasha, there's a slight issue. The speaker just called me that he would have a few minutes delay. So let's wait for like few minutes until he join. He has personal issue. He would join quickly. Let's wait.
Okay, sorry about that thing. So again, I request you to, if you have any questions related to the session which is done by Dr. Dhammika Kadua, you can have your questions in the chat box, and Dr. Dhammika Kadua will answer for that questions. So with that thing, we have some announcement to make. As you all know, the career fair, Astute Pro 5.0 career fair is around the corner on November 3rd at YC Maharagama. So as the registrations close to applicants, we request you to stick appoint your time in your schedule, and hope to see you all at YC Maharagama on 3rd of November. You can have so many opportunities on that day. We invite you to the Career Fair Astute Pro 5.0, which is organized by IEEE Young Professionals Sri Lanka.
Bimasha, since you mentioned the career fair, I thought of adding something, and also our second speaker has not joined it. So give me a couple of minutes just to share my experience about career fairs. Now, yes, one of the biggest things in a career fair is when you go and meet or when you face an interview, what to say, right? So from this session itself, I get the feeling that you guys are a little bit reluctant engineering students are a little bit reluctant to apply for these IT jobs. Don't be that, right? So what a company looks for in a graduate is actually they are looking at what they can make out of you, right? So they are not necessarily interested in what you are right now, but they are interested in what they can make from you, right? So most of the students, so one of the key points that you need to realize is, or one of the main topics of discussion during an interview would be your project, the project that you have done in your final year, right? And there are also students tend to take projects simply because it's the hottest technology that is going around, right? So you do a project because that's the latest and the greatest technology. You just want to use it, just want to learn it, right? And you think knowing that technology is the biggest thing that the company would look for. It's really not the case, right? Of course, there are certain companies, I would call them like very small companies that need people to hit the floor running, right? So those companies will definitely look at whether you know a certain technology, right? But other companies like big and stable companies, what they look for is like, how did you approach the problem, right? So they're not interested in the technology that you learned. Obviously, by doing the project, you would have learned some technologies, but they're more interested in your approach to the problem, right? How did you solve that problem? And how did you analyze it? How did you solve it? But and then did you look at alternatives? How did you figure out which alternative is good? Right. So this is like, again, it depends on the company, but especially if you're looking to apply for bigger companies, larger companies, much stable companies, your description of the project should be that. Don't say I learned I don't know, some Go language or whatever, some fancy language that is going out. They're not interested, because if that Go will change in another 5 years time, it might not be the hottest language, there'll be something else, right? But they are worried is, how did you approach it, right? That science of it. So when you're facing an interview, keep that in mind, right? One of the main points of discussion would be your final year project. And when you're presenting the final year project, when you're talking about the final year project, emphasize that aspect of it. Don't say I learned this particular technology, but emphasize how did you approach the problem, right? How did you figure out the solution? How did you make sure that this was the best solution, right? What were the alternatives, and why didn't you go for those alternatives? Because that's sort of that approach is what matters the most. Yeah, and I think before facing an interview, as undergraduates, you should practice, right? You should have a good story around it, because interviewers tend to sort of go with the flow, right? I mean, they will ask a question and the next question would be based on your answer, right? So if you're clever about it, you can get the interviewer to ask the questions that you want him to ask, right? The questions that you have very good answers for, right? So how do you do that? Well, you need to practice, right? So I presume these are all final year students. Just get together. One student can be the interviewer, and then the other student can be the person who is facing the interview. You can just practice, right? So facing the interview definitely requires some practice. So I recommend you do that as well.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. Yeah.
Can I ask a
Yes,
question?
we have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, you can.
Sir, I completed my diploma in electrical and electronic engineering in ACBT College, and then I was about to transfer to Australia, and I missed the chance because of COVID and the borders were closed. So I had to start with Bachelor of Mathematics in Open University, and currently I'm doing that. And I'm also willing to combine mathematics sector with IT, kind of to get into an HND or something. So I have that urge to complete something related to electrical and electronic engineering as well. So I wonder whether what I'm doing is right or not. So because what I'm doing now is mathematics, and whether I can relate mathematics with IT or whether I should again go with engineering. Can I?
Yeah, I think you can definitely relate anything with mathematics, right? Say even electrical engineering, anyone who had studied electromagnetism, who even AC currents will tell you it's basically comes down to a bunch of mathematical equations. So studying mathematics makes a lot of sense, but the only hint, sort of the difference is, so when you're learning mathematics as the core, you are learning the core concepts of the mathematics, right? But in this engineering, what we are really doing is applied mathematics, right? So having a maths background, having a very strong maths background would definitely help, but it's not, you need that practical part as well. So think of it this way, it's like, being a surgeon, right? So obviously to be a surgeon, you need to have a good understanding of the human body, how it works and all that, right? So that is like the math, right? But then having that understanding alone will not make you a surgeon, right? Because there are certain other skills that you need to become a surgeon.
Yeah.
So doing a maths degree, so my understanding, if I understood your situation right, but you sort of want to continue in the with this electrical engineering thing, but since the board is closed, just to pass the time, you're doing mathematics, right?
Yes.
So that makes sense. That's perfectly fine, and that maths knowledge that you have would definitely help you to sort of go forward in your career. And it can, I mean, look at things like data science. It's essentially statistics, right? You're sort of, so it's maths, but it's applied maths.
Yes.
So yeah, that's fine. I mean, doing it right now, but remember that alone will not be sufficient, because you need that application part of it as well.
Okay. And also, sir, may I know whether what is more related with mathematics, whether it's machine learning or cloud computing?
Machine learning would be a bit more related.
Okay.
I mean, even cloud computing and all that. For example, all the, I mean, networking, how computers are connected, it comes back to mathematics, like queuing theory and all that. They evolved in mathematics, right? So, but they have gone a long way. The level of abstraction that you have is very high. So you don't see that underlying maths, but there's underlying maths. But say machine learning, data science kind of stuff, there's a bit more connection, visible connection to maths still.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, there was another.
Thank you. And we have another. Yes.
You are referring to the one on the chat, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so the question is, do the IT companies consider about online certification from edX, Coursera, Udemy for fresh graduates? The simple answer is yes, they do. Again, yeah, so let's say they do. And as I said before, so this is where you guys get this wrong, right? So most of the companies, but they're like, especially these bigger companies, right? More established companies, what they're looking for is your approach, right? So when I was undergrad, there was a talk done by a very senior engineer, and something he said stuck with me for a long time. He said, I mean, it's still with me. He said, knowledge can be acquired, right? Or it can be hired, right? So that's hiring part is what the companies are doing, right? They are hiring the knowledge that they need. For us, knowledge can be acquired. I mean, you go to whatever the place and you can learn, right? But that basic scientific approach is what is difficult to capture, and that is what you should focus. I might be talking to the wrong crowd here, since you guys are final year students, I presume. But through your degree, what you should gather is that sort of scientific approach to problem solving, right? And whatever the little tools that you need for doing that you can learn from any field, right? But the point that I want to make is they do consider this, but most importantly, they would look at what you have done, things like the projects that you have got involved, and whatever the technology that you have used there would be more useful, more sort of a more how should I say, it would be a more convincing argument. For example, like the difference between me saying, okay, I have done a Coursera course on Python, as opposed to I have done this large project by using Python, right? The second one would be more convincing for the interview panel, right? But of course, they do consider whatever the online things that you have done. Okay, so Bimasha, what kind of prior knowledge do you expect in software level for machine learning and data science industry? Again, as I said, it depends on the company that you're trying to get into, right? So if you're applying for a certain company, again, this has nothing to do with the particular topic that I am supposed to talk today, but if you're applying for a company, do your homework. Before facing the interview, do your homework, figure out what they're doing, what is their technology stack, and make sure that you sort of, whatever that you say to the interviewer would align what you have done with what the company is doing, right? So that alignment is pretty important, right? Again, as I said, different companies would be using different machine learning techniques and tools and so on. But what they're more interested in is what you have, whether they can convert you into that, right? Say company X, maybe they're using technology, say Pegasus, right? I'm pretty sure no one has used Pegasus. I'm not sure how many of you have heard Pegasus, right? So that's something that is being used in a large company in Sri Lanka, right? So no one has used it, but by using other things, but you can prove yourself that you're worth, that you can learn Pegasus simply because the kind of jobs that you have done, right? And when it comes to this machine learning and data sort of science industry, I'll be very open about this and say this. In Sri Lanka, it's not, what they're doing is sort of data engineering kind of thing, right? You're not doing the science of it, like you're not, creating new algorithms or whatever, but what you're doing is data engineering, right? So there are a lot of tools and frameworks for doing that data engineering part. So if you have some experience with those tool chains, that will be great, right? But again, that might be too late now. So right now our industry is heavily looking for data engineering, and that's sort of, you have a lot of frameworks, a lot of tool chains for doing that. And if you have experience with that, that will definitely help. But that doesn't mean that they are just looking for that, right? If you can convince the company that, okay, you can train me in anything, you're good. Right, there's another question. So I'm currently following the Bachelor's of Engineering Technology degree, specializing in mechatronics, Java. Can I know what would be the correct path? Yeah, so you are doing a Bachelor's of Mechatronics and you want to get into the IT sector. So there are a lot of things in this sector that you can look at. Right, so there are certain companies that are doing robotics, even say Zone 24/7. They call themselves a solution company, right? Zone 24/7, for example. So they develop solutions. If the solution requires robotics, they do the robotics. If it requires programming, they do the programming, right? So they're looking for a very large set of skill sets. So there are a lot of companies that are doing robotics. You can look at them because your mechatronics training would definitely help. A lot of sort of so-called IT companies, right? I'm again using that term very lightly. They are into robotics, so look for a company like that, right? So you can go to this Sluscom. Sluscom is the sort of the industry chamber for IT companies. There they have they have listed all the companies, and then you can go to the company's website and figure out what they're doing. So, Bimasha, am I talking with final years, or are they like a mix of different students? Sorry, Bimasha, you're breaking up. I'm not sure about others, but I can't hear you, Bimasha.
Yes, it's a mix of, I mean, first years, second years, third years, fourth years, and even fresh graduates are there.
Okay. Yeah, so like, how do I get into the data science industry? As I said, it's more like the data engineering that's really happening in Sri Lanka, and there's a huge scarcity of these data engineers. So the difference being data science is more to do with the algorithms part and so on. Data engineering is more data driven, right? You have frameworks, you sort of pick the data, massage it a bit, figure out what are the right parameters, and then you feed it to a pipeline. Right, so there are a lot of pipelines for doing data engineering. Just do a search and doing a project on that, and learning some of these pipelines would definitely help you to get into the industry with relative ease. Right, so there's another question, sir. What do you think of an electronics and moving into software management within the current industry? Yeah, so okay, so in the software field, like okay, I should have maybe probably read out the question. So what do you think of an electronics undergraduate moving to software project management within the current industry environment in Sri Lanka? So this project, now when you join the IT industry, usually they take for technical tracks, meaning you'll be, say, a software engineer, and then when you progress through your career, you can decide to stay as a sort of a techie, be an architect, a senior architect, blah blah. You can take that path, or you can move on to the management side. That's the usual practice. So you will anyway start off as a software engineer. Maybe this question you should have asked from our other guest speaker. So then he'll be able to give a better answer, because I have never been to the industry. I just know things from my interactions with them. So that's the usual thing, right? So typically they don't hire directly for software project management. It's essentially a track that you can select. So you enter as a software engineer, and then once you progress, you can decide whether you want to get into the management side, or whether you want to be a hardcore like a technical level. Yeah, so from what I know, Chaturanga, it's sorry, who is it? Jananga. So it's essentially, you would have to start as a software engineer, and maybe later when you progress, you can decide to move on to the management side. So Chaturanga, what are you saying? So I'm finally a chemical and process engineer undergraduate from Moratuwa. Yeah, so chemical and process engineering, want to get into the data science part. So I think I personally believe, everyone trying to jump into data science thing, forgetting about your basic sort of background. I don't recommend that, right? But so, for example, this particular question, you're from chemical and process engineering, and you want to jump into data science. A better option would be to see whether you can learn data science a bit, and whether you can sort of add that as an additional thing for your process engineering part, right? Definitely, process engineering can be improved with data science. So you're not, if you take that approach, you're not throwing out everything that you have learned, but instead you are sort of, adding, you are doing a value addition by using IT tools. That way you would definitely have a better sort of career path. What are the job opportunities to electrical and electronics engineers? Yeah, so electrical and electronics engineering, you actually, as I said, so what are the job opportunities for electrical and electronics engineering in the IT field? We have a lot of job opportunities from software engineering to QA to BA to network engineering to DevOps to sort of all that is available for it. So it depends on your liking and it depends on what you have done. Yeah, so for electrical, we have a lot of openings. In fact, I would say, you can get into most of the jobs without too much of a fuss. Yeah, Bimasha, what's the status? Do we have the next speaker?
Dr. Kadu, I am here.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was actually answering your questions as well.
Yeah, I was listening. Some of the questions I would have answered, but anyway, yeah, whatever you told was like really true, and I second all the comments that you said, Dr. Kadu. So, yeah.
Yeah, sorry about taking your time.
Not a problem.
All right, Bimasha, I'll side off. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Akado, for that informative words and explanation and also sharing your experience. So now I invite Mr. Vipulaliana Rachi for sharing his experience and as the second speaker for today's session. Sir, floor is yours.
Right. Thank you very much. And Vimasha, so I understand the forum that I'm talking is a mix of different grade undergraduates. So we have first years as well, right?
Yes, sir. We have all those people, the fresh graduates, fourth years, third years, and also second years. But I'm not sure about first years.
Okay. So
We have.
so I'll try to address the general audience, but if you have any specific questions, I think let's try to make it kind of an interactive session. So please unmute your mic or like raise your hand, unmute your mic and ask. So that would be the best way for me to know what is really happening inside your head and to make sure this session is more effective, right? So I will just give a short description of how I get into the industry and what I do today so that you will understand this transformation that really happened during my career. And also, if you take many of the software engineers, software graduates that came out and coming out, will go through this transition. So I graduated from the University of Moratuwa from the Department of Electronics and Telecommunication. Right? So when I was coming out, telecommunication was like in a boom. This Suntel and Dialog came into the industry. It took the market dominance from Sri Lanka Telecom, and telecommunication was a big game. So people were trying to join SLT, Dialog, and those companies because they were paying really well. So electronics and telecommunication was in a very high demand. Whoever get into the university, the best people, best students only get chance to get admitted to the department. Like the electronics department was considered kind of a privilege. Only 48 students in a particular year get admission to the department. Okay. So I joined the department. I learned through my academic stuff. I finished, and when I came out, I was like interested in general engineering. So electromechanicals, audio engineering, and also aviation. Those were the fields that I personally was interested. So I ended up in a robotic company. My first job was in a robotic company. Then down the line, I got a call from one of my friends to see whether I could join another organization which was into electronics manufacturing. The company's name was Mobinetics. That's like long time ago. I'm talking like 2002 timeframe. So this is electronic manufacturing, very much related to my field of learning. So easy transition. And I moved into this company who is manufacturing devices for like money transactions, like the credit card machines. That's what we were really doing, and signature pads. In that, my career when I started with a circuit designing team. Again, very much related to the things that I've learned. Not very difficult for me to understand what's going on. Circuit designing, and then I went to China and Taiwan, not Taiwan actually, Hong Kong, where we had some officers dealing with manufacturing. So I got a chance to look into these manufacturing processes as well. And again, very much related to the work that I did in university, not much of a challenge for me to learn and adapt. Down the line, I had to look into the software code that is really running inside these devices. So it was written in the plain C, not even C++, the generic C. It was a very plain C code, not something that I have really learned in the university, but it was very much related to the electronics, because this code that I was like looking into is work directly communicating or talking to the hardware. So again, when I look at it, like not much of a difficult thing to do, just understanding what this C language is. So I found a book in one of the bookshops, the C++, actually C manual that was written by the people who designed the C language, Dennis Ritchie and all. So went through the book, tried some examples that is in the book. Then I was like very comfortably working on software code. But this is very low level hardware drivers, not much of a difference in the nature, could really easily understand and adapt. Few years, probably 1 or 2 years down, there was an opportunity inside the organization. We were moving into Windows CE, that is the compact edition of Windows, and we were trying to port Windows CE into a particular hardware. So this is kind of a different thing, and it's a completely type of a software job where I would spend a lot of my time inside a computer looking at software code, not dealing much with, though there was some hardware, I was not really dealing a lot with hardware. So it was a bit of a different environment I was moving into. So out of curiosity, I started working with those teams. And fortunately, the company that I was working, it actually helped me a lot by providing the necessary training opportunities. Basically, they got me into certain courses. Those days, internet was there, but content on the internet was like very low when you compare to today. Now, if you really want to learn something, you can just go and learn. In the internet, you have YouTube and all these fancy training platforms. You can easily learn, but those days you need to find a trainer if you really want to learn. So they got me in touch with certain trainers. As a whole, the company also supported me to do a transition. So I transitioned into the software field somewhere around 2008. So that's after about 4 or 5 years after starting my career, 2006, probably 2006 timeframe. So I basically moved into the software field, though I did not really give up on my electronics liking, because I really liked the field of electronics. Therefore, I kept my engagement at personal level. So I built up a small lab at home. I did my DIY stuff, do it yourself stuff at home. But as a career, I started looking into software more because it was interesting. Like, it's a very nice area. You could meet a lot of good people, good engineers, and there was a lot to learn. The learning opportunity was what exactly going behind my head. So I have done electronics, I know mechanics, I can work with robotics. Fine, what next? So software, great. So I picked software, and then I went to Windows CE. Then went to Microsoft for training into the US, and then we started working on Windows Mobile, which was the mobile phone type of software stack that Windows brought in, and all the way up to Windows 10, Windows Phone we were using inside while I was working in that company. So that entire stack I had good experience. But still it's a little bit of a different thing than some of the software that you see today, because it was running on a device, though we were working on the operating system level software code and like drivers and SDKs to develop software onto those mobile computers. It was still a little bit attached to a mobile device or a hardware directly. It was not just running on PC or on a server that you see in like Amazon type of website. It's not the area that I was working. And at the same time, I got an opportunity to lead a team. So as you have to learn again, start learning again on how you manage a team effectively, how you build a team effectively, how you train a team effectively. So the management experience, of course, you have to learn when you start working with a team and taking a higher responsibility of delivering something bigger. So the next step of my learning was getting into management. So the people management skills we had to learn, soft skills, how to present, how to talk in front of a customer, investor. Likewise, there were certain stuff that I had to learn, and also negotiation skills. How can we go and negotiate with a client or customer? So those trainings, of course, the organization that I have worked, like multinational organizations, they do really help. They understand the training needs of individuals, but you have to speak up definitely. And they understand that your training needs, and they provide good training opportunities. And I got actually exposed to many of the great trainers. I was like very lucky to be on those large multinational companies, because I got exposure to many of the good trainers. Then the next step was going into management. But I was still managing in my organization few teams related to mobile computing, operating systems. Actually, we started working on Android a lot. So Android, and there was another team I was managing where our main focus was in innovation. So it was a very much funded team who developed technology for the next 3 years, the next 5 years, the next 10 years. So it's like a very futuristic team. So you need to have a different type of mindset to manage that team, because they were always trying to solve a problem that would arise in 3 years. So that is another experience and a learning curve. So it's something you don't find a course. You really can't find a course to become an inventor. It has to be learned mostly by yourself, by engaging with things. So it was a different type of a learning. And we ended up creating a lot of patents for the organization and publications and all. Again, different field. And then I got a opportunity to move out from that company and join another organization. Again, a big change, because the new company was doing these cloud technologies, largely like software engineering in a different way. So they were building websites, they were creating services, and they were working on data science, artificial intelligence, as well as they had some teams working on robotics, and as well as some hardware, electronic designs, check scanners, all the stuff they were doing. This is the company that I work today, Sun 24/7. Now I am joining this company with 19 years experience, but now still I have to learn, because I do not know what cloud computing is, how to deploy something onto Amazon Web Server. I have no idea, because I have not done anything before. So again, a learning cycle. I had to take few courses. After 19 years of experience, being a big manager in the organization, I'm going to Coursera, I'm going to Udemy, and I'm starting learning again. So this learning habit was within me, and I think it has to be within every one of you. You have to keep on learning, keep on training yourself. So after 19 years, I was again studying on Udemy. Then now where I am is basically running an organization which is about 75% software and 25% electronics and hardware. And to manage this team, manage the organization, my career path, I started from electronics and telecommunication and circuit designing. This entire story really helped for me to manage, because when my team members see me as a leader, they know I know what I'm talking about. That is very important when you come to the leadership team. So the top message I want to really give to you is the habit of learning. And so the requirement may arise for you to learn, or you may start learning first and look for an opportunity for you to apply. Either way can happen, but you don't ever think that I am done. I have done my degree. I have a bachelor's degree now. Somebody has to give me some work to apply my knowledge. That doesn't really happen in this industry. You need to figure out, okay, I have done my degree. I have a bachelor's degree. Fine. What next? What is the next thing that I'm going to learn? What is the next thing? Because the things that was the requirement that was there in the industry when I was entering the university is no longer there when I was coming out. The industry changes in a very fast phase. So a university will find it very difficult to prepare a student or a candidate for future, because that's what they have to do. They will find it very difficult. It's very difficult to figure out what language is going to be more dominantly used in 4 years. Today, it could be Java, it could be .NET, C#.NET. But in 5 years, something that is coming from Google or Facebook might overtake. When we were entering, C++ was a big game, and it turned to Java. And when we were in Android world, Java was first used, and they transitioned everything to Kotlin. So Google was promoting Kotlin, and we had to learn Kotlin. Moving from one technology to another need self-learning and preparation, but it is not at all difficult. It's very, very, very easy. Okay. So this is the first part that I want to talk about, how I basically transitioned from an electronics and telecommunication engineer all the way down to a general manager of an organization, but still keeping touch on the technology area. Even somebody want me to talk about certain technologies, I still would be able to do it today. So keeping that, while you progress on your career ladder, understanding and keeping track on what's going on, the tech touch is very, very important. So do you have any questions regarding the area that I spoke about before I go to the next topic? Nimasha, just let me know if you have any chat, anything on the chat window, so I can just read it and I will answer. Any questions from the forum? Yeah, what kind of qualifications do the companies expect from the fresh graduates? Qualifications, all right. That's a very tricky question. I will tell in general, we will expect a 4-year bachelor's degree or 3-year bachelor's degree as an entry qualification. But it is not at all sufficient for you to progress in your career. Now, if you're coming in as a fresh graduate, that would be the minimum. But again, there are exceptions that we have made. Even today, we have employees in my company who have not even completed their degree. Right? So there are so many long-term interns that we have taken. They are still doing their academic work, and on a side they are working. Actually, there are certain groups from a particular university. They work full-time and study part-time. So it's the basic get the employment. I would say it is 3-year bachelor's degree. If you really ask for what field do we really look at, what is the bachelor's degree you have, what is the curriculum that you have gone through. In certain cases, we go and check those things. If we feel you are a interesting person, but you don't really have anything else to show. Then we have to go through your degree certificate and then your project experience and what are the materials that you have learned. Because sometimes we find interesting kids, good GPA, good academic performance, but they don't really have any other project experience. I mean, they have done their final year project, but they have not done much. But they have a good brain that tells we can understand by the academic qualification. So we go and ask some sort of academic type of questions, whether you know these theories, and we look for the paper qualification. But it is like very rarely when we hire, we look for a energetic individual. Okay, what you know does matter, but it is not the break or make type of decision. It doesn't. We don't really make decisions based on your paper qualification. We see our HR teams, they will ask, I mean, look for your academic qualifications and per se, but we are mostly looking for a person we can mold and train. A learning person is more preferred, a team worker is more preferred, an innovator is more preferred than a person with a lot of qualifications. Did I answer your question, Chaturanga? All right, any more questions? Right. So then I will go to the next topic again. Please ask if you have any questions. The next topic is basically what are the support that these organizations provide if you are taking a person for a tech transition. Okay, so the very straightforward answer, it's just one single line answer that I have. Now we will provide you training and coaching. So if you just look at my career path, when I was moving to software from electronics circuit designing background, the support that I got from the organization is to understand my career aspiration and providing the necessary training. Actually, I got the opportunity to, when I was like moving to Windows CE, the best trainer in the world at that time was a person called Asandani, Indian trainer. The company got him down to Sri Lanka. So they arranged a group training session. So we went and participated. So that type of support you will definitely get. We will, through our HR system, we will see what you really want to do with your life. What's your career growth path? What do you really want to be in 2 years, 3 years? We will ask those questions through our HR partners. And we'll try to figure out like what type of a candidate or a student or employee that we are working with. And then we will help you to be who you really want to be while performing in the organization as an employee. So the best and the only thing that we generally provide is guidance and training. So we will also say, like, if you're trying to really study something that was in last generation's tech, so somebody wants to say, like, I want to do Ruby on Rails or some older technology, we will guide you. Okay, tomorrow you will find it difficult. It may be a good technology today for you to learn and apply, but this technology is going to die in like 2 years. So don't invest that much of time for something that's going to die in 2 years. So we will provide you certain insights to the future, because we've been in the industry and we have seen the patterns, how things come up and get to their boom and then die out. We have seen those patterns. So there was a huge thing about blockchain, and likewise, there are certain IoT was there at some point. Likewise, there are certain things that come as a huge market trend, stay there for 1 or 2 years, and then die out. So we can provide those guidance, like whether you are doing the right thing or wrong thing. But there are students who are really passionate about certain things. We have people, I really don't want to do data science. But if you are really looking for to study data science because the data science are paid well, I would say fine, that's okay for you to earn money. It's not bad. But I don't know whether that's the right thing. But if you're really passionate about data science, so then definitely you will be given the positive guidance, and because data science is going to stay, we know. AI is going to stay, we know. Likewise, we will provide you the support that you need to become who you are. So if you're coming in from electronics and telecommunication background and applying for a software job, at least in my company, don't expect, like we normally do not ask things that you don't know. So we won't come and ask you Java questions. If you say that I don't know Java, we will try to figure out what you know and what you are good at. And then we will try to figure out whether you will fit our organization or not. And that's how this matching process happens. Whether you are the right person to the particular job, we will definitely have to look it because we want to get you to perform certain tasks in an organization. But your long-term career aspiration, where you want to grow, that everything can be discussed and molded in your career and growth path discussions once you are a part of an organization. So getting into an organization, try to see if there's anything that you can, an opportunity that you can directly match, then your entry path is very smooth. You will get in very straightforward, not much of a hassle, you get in. But if it is, if I'm really applying for a software, cloud computing job or DevOps job, with having only a mathematics background, that match will fail. So you will not get it. But so before you go into the interview, just try to brush up yourself on the jargon on DevOps. What DevOps really is, and then try to figure out what are the tools that is mostly used in DevOps, and then try something out, because many things that the DevOps teams you can just download and try out. Familiarize yourself with the tools, say Docker, Kubernetes. There are certain keywords. I'm not a person who is experienced in DevOps, but I know these technologies exist. So you just try something out and be ready to face those questions. But apart from, when we are convinced that you have the basic knowledge, we will try to see whether you are the best fit for the team, whether you can play a teamwork, whether you can be whether you are learning, whether we can mold you to the next generation best DevOps engineer. That we can find out during HR and engineering interview session. What type of a person you are, what are the qualities that you bring in, what are your attitudes? Very important, right? What are your attitudes? How you would deal. We will ask certain tricky questions and figure out who you are. So that's very important. We want a person filled with energy, who can work with other team members, understand the team culture, as well as who can keep on learning. So that is very, very, very important. I'm keep on repeating this learning habit. It will continue till you die. So that is very, very, very important. Your learning habit. So we will try to see like how did you really learn this thing? Did you really work on a project? We'll ask those tricky questions. Be honest. If you don't know, tell that I have no idea about this technologies because I have not worked with. So then we won't ask any questions in that area. So if you are in a transition, if you're coming into the software industry from a different field, you need to have some basic understanding on the technologies and the tools. That is important before you come in. So train yourself, brush up yourself. You don't really have to take a degree on software engineering, but certain courses on Udemy, even YouTube, there are so many free videos you can watch. Brush up yourself and also try it out. Just don't look at the thing and write something down because you are not really facing an exam, it's an interview. So try it out. Install it on your PC, follow some training videos and do what it says. See how the tool works. Try to understand the basics. Practice something, and then before you come into the interview, we know that you have done something on that, and we know that you are interested. You are interested in the technology, not just the job and the pay. Job and the pay is important, but you need to be passionate about what you do. So be ready when you are coming in. The organizations definitely, when you got in, will provide all the necessary training and guidance, and you don't really have to worry about if the world changes tomorrow. We won't let our team go and find another team that is fitting to the tomorrow's world. What we do is we transform our team to fit the world that is coming tomorrow. So this transformation engine is already there inside organizations. We do run. What we are looking for is good people, good employees who are loyal to the organization, who can work with others. So those are the things that we will be looking at. So for an electronics engineering educator, is it enough to have only a high level understanding about tech stack if we wish to become a Scrum Master in the team? All right. The Scrum Master actually is a management type of a job. Okay. So your role would be basically running the daily stand-up. And then if you see any obstacles that the team is facing, you need to clear them out. So that's a basic role of the Scrum Master. So if you really want to become a Scrum Master, you need to have a high level understanding about the tech stack. Because you may not really go and solve their problem, but you will have to go and find the person who can solve that problem. If one of your team members come and say that I have a problem with this particular technology, you will take him offline, and then you find in the organization or outside what can we do to get this person's problem solved. So you are right. If you really want to become a Scrum Master, it is enough for you to have high level understanding, because you are not going to touch the code, but you need to have a good high level understanding, which you cannot really get without working in the technology. Okay, so hands-on experience, if you have, would always come in handy. And also Scrum Master is a different skill set. If you really want to become a Scrum Master, it is technology independent role. So there are certain trainings that you can go through. You can become a certified Scrum Master. Likewise, there are certain trainings and paths that you can take if you really are interested in becoming a Scrum Master, professional, full-time Scrum Master. With some of the organizations that I work, we do have full-time Scrum Masters and we do have part-time Scrum Masters. So they act as a Scrum Master in a particular project, but they actually work the remaining part of the day on another project. So Scrum Master, it can be a dual role as well. Did I answer your question? Okay. Any more questions? All right. So anything that I want to cover from the organizer's side? We have Vimasha.
Sir,
Yeah. So is there anything that I have to cover?
sir, can you please clarify the difference between cloud computing and machine learning? And I mean, what is the most relevant with analytical side with mathematics?
In mathematics?
So like, which is most relatable with mathematics and analytical?
Right. So I will give you a little bit of a higher high level understanding, because what you told me, like cloud computing, those are like buzzwords. you start learning from the buzzwords, because you see that if you really look at the industry trends and try to adapt to it, you will hear these buzzwords and you will be like thinking, okay, cloud computing is there. How can I become a cloud computing engineer? Yeah. So first of all, you have to become the engineer and then go into these areas if the company provides that opportunity. If you are a mathematician, what I have seen is they perform, if you are a very good mathematician, they perform in algorithm development a lot. So in analytics and AI and data science, the core algorithms play a huge role, but we don't really have many people working on those core algorithms. What we generally have in Sri Lanka is engineers who are really working on the data. They brush up the data, put it to an algorithm that is already available in TensorFlow or some tool, and then they try to get a good output out of it. So if you are really interested in mathematics, I think it's a unique skill. In some of the companies that I have worked, we got people with mathematics and statistics degrees and trained them on software engineering, and they became like very good engineers at the end. So because they do have the capability of solving a complex problem, and through engineering, the software engineering training, they get exposure to the toolkit. So you know how to drive and you got the vehicle as well. Likewise, if you are really interested in going into deep into mathematics, and if mathematics passionates you, my suggestion is you go into that path, keep your maths touch and learn software engineering as a toolkit. So cloud computing actually is when you do certain mathematical operations, you don't really do in your local computer or a local server. You hire a processing power. You take processing power from a service where you don't know where it is. That's why it's called cloud computing. It's a location irrelevant service. You just get that processing power and you let your algorithm run on the cloud and you get the output. Data science, machine learning, those algorithms you can definitely run on the cloud. So getting a cloud service up would be an engineering task as well as a DevOps task. So when you get into organization, you will get support. You may not be able to do everything by yourself, but again, if you really want to develop something, some sort of advanced algorithm and run it on a Amazon cloud and see, you can still do it. So Shamini, so what was the other keyword that you were asking about? Cloud computing?
And machine learning, sir.
Yeah, machine learning also is something. Machine learning, actually, when you look at it, that in the core, it is a statistical problem that you are trying to solve using a computer. You're basically creating some sort of a statistical model where by looking at certain data, you converge into an answer. So what underlying is a mathematical algorithm, mathstat algorithm. So if you really can contribute to that area, that would be a niche area, and I would really happy to see people like you are entering into the industry, because what really happens is when you talk about AI, many organizations and also many engineers, what they do is they work with data, their data engineering, and they just use somebody else's algorithm. They do minor small changes like changing the pipeline, certain things they do, but the core thing, the core AI thing is a huge thing, not really seen much happening in the local context, but there may be, because I don't know what all the companies are doing. Being a mathematician, you can definitely touch any of these. AI, machine learning, cloud computing is absolutely non-related, it's a service. It's a place where you can run your algorithm. So definitely having the mathematical knowledge behind you and having a good software engineering toolkit. You may not need to do all the stuff. Maybe you just learn C#.NET or Java, those other main things that's happening. There are so many other frameworks like this Golang is very much like C. There are certain new languages. Python is always there for machine learning. It's one of the best used. But apart from Python, I think you should learn one more language. It is a tool. Language doesn't really define you. Language is just a tool. It's like when you are learning to drive, you learn to drive, not to drive a particular type of vehicle. Like I can say that I have a driver license to drive a Toyota car, but not a Nissan van. Likewise, the vehicle you drive is your tool. So it doesn't really define you. What define is the driving skill set. So you're in a very sweet spot if you know a lot of good mathematics, problem solving skills, algorithmic skills, and a good tool to demonstrate your capability, which is a programming language.
Okay, so currently I'm following a Java foundation course, and I'm willing to do another machine learning foundation course as well. It would be take around 3 months, like it's just the beginner's course. So would it be a suitable qualification for me to apply as an intern or to get into the field as a
It definitely your academic background will help. I would never say no to any learning if you can go through. So when you are taking a 3 months training session on machine learning, so are you trying to learn TensorFlow as a tool?
Yes, sir.
TensorFlow, right? So if you take TensorFlow, it's a tool that utilizes certain, like the pipeline and the algorithms, everything will be there. So if you're learning TensorFlow, that's a good thing. Basically, what you are learning is a tool to apply your machine learning skills. That's perfectly fine. But as an entry qualification, as a trainee to a software engineer, I think your Java course will definitely help. But just don't learn the Java language. Just try to deploy something that is working. You create a local host in your PC and try to see whether you can create some sort of a small website where you do certain processing using Java code in the server end, and just try to understand what the backend and front end is, how a front end query can come into the backend and do certain process and get something out. Try to replicate some of the small, probably have seen there are certain simple applications like an online calculator, how these things are implemented, whether the calculation when you do, whether it is done inside a code that is within the browser environment, or whether your numbers go back to the server, whether the calculation is done in the backend server and the answer comes out. Likewise, there are so many things that you will learn, like how the engine runs underneath. That would definitely help. Just don't learn the language. Try to do at least one full level example. Follow something on YouTube. There are so many things, because even I had to do after so many years of experience when I was joining Zone 24/7. I took a course, and then to understand me to how to deploy something on Amazon Web Services, I had to create an account, try things out. So learn and try things out. So you'll be very comfortable when you are facing an interview when people ask questions.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Thanks, Samita. Good questions. Okay. So, question on the chat: is it possible to career transfer from chemical and process engineering to machine learning and data science field? I am an years undergrad. Yeah, the last question: will the IT companies accept chemical engineering undergraduates? The straightforward answer is yes, as long as you can convince the people. When we got your CV, if you have listed your academic qualification only, I don't think we will process you at all because you are applying for the wrong position. If I get a CV with an academic qualification for a chemical engineer to IT job, that's a no match. So you will not get processed, but you need to have something that interests a software company, right? So if you can do some courses, you can learn how the software environments work, and you can probably deploy some small web application into Amazon, and then you just put, or like maybe some service, you just get it running. There are so many free things that you can do on the internet without paying much. And then you go into GitHub, upload your source code, create few YouTube videos and on how to do it, what you learned about. And when you send your CV, if there's sufficient material in your CV for us to understand this person is really interested in software engineering, and that we can mold him or mold you into a good software engineer in 1 year, 6 months time frame, you will be considered. There's no cutoff thing. At least in my company, we do take people with different engineering, non-engineering backgrounds, as long as they can convince us that they can contribute to the organization in a positive way as a software engineer. You will be in. What you learned in the past may not matter. So top level answer is, don't try to apply to a software engineer thinking you are a chemical and process engineer. You have to get rid of that entire concept out, take it out from your head. You have to apply to a software engineering software company as a software engineer. So there has to be something that the software engineering team who will be evaluating your CV understands. Because we won't be able to evaluate, ask questions and process you as a chemical engineer, because we do not know anything about chemical engineering. So please do something, prepare yourself, try something out on that tech stack and apply for a job. And also I would always say, follow your passion, not the industry trend. If you are passionate about chemical engineering, or if that is the reason you went into chemical engineering, not because you didn't have marks or anything. If your passion was in chemical engineering, please go ahead and try to push yourself, find an opportunity where you can go and do whatever you like. Software engineering, there are so many opportunities. Like we have a lot of opportunities that is coming in. It's an area we want good engineers, good people, but we want all of you to love the job you do. It's very difficult for us to get working with you as a software engineer if you are still thinking that you are a chemical and process engineer. Having a background on chemical engineering would definitely help you, because we will probably be solving chemical related problems in software world in the future. It would always help, but when you provide the CV, please have something that interests me or the reader. And generally what we do is we ask questions on what you have on the CV. So if you don't have anything on your CV about C#.NET, we will not ask C#.NET questions, because we know that you can't answer. It's going, that interview is going to be failure, because it's going to be the waste of my time and your time. Best thing is we will try to see if you have done Java. We will put a Java interview panel and see whether you really know what you have done. Okay, if you say you have done a project on Java and deployed something, we will ask tricky questions to see whether you have actually done it or whether somebody else has done it for you. That's how we try to figure out who are the pool of people. But the straightforward answer is yes, we accept people with different calibers. We are looking for people who can contribute, engineers who can contribute to the industry, and engineers who we can grow. Okay, so the growth opportunity, whether you are willing to learn, that is going to play a huge role in finding the job opportunity in software world. Okay, any more questions?
Yeah, I think that's all the questions about. So thank you, Mr. Vipuladeyanachi, for those insightful words. As much as I gained from that, I'm sure everyone did as well. So I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude for accepting our honorable invitation today. So thank you once again. So we would like to let you know that we will be circulating a feedback form in the chat box. So feel free to give your comments and feedback regarding today's program. Now we will move to the some sponsor videos of our partners.
We are Dialogue Axiata. We are proud to serve over 17 million Sri Lankans and to be a part in some way, large or small, of every Sri Lankan home and enterprise. We stand tall as Sri Lanka's largest and fastest growing telecommunications service provider, delivering a revenue of over 141.9 billion rupees in 2021, with a year-on-year revenue growth of 18%, EBITDA growth of 16%, and PATAMI growth of 42%. Dialog is amongst the top 10 listed companies on the Colombo Stock Exchange in terms of market capitalization and has paved the way with emboldened investments in technological advancement. Dialog celebrated another year of brand excellence, further solidified by the recognition of being awarded the most valuable brand in the country for the third consecutive year, with a brand value of 53.9 billion rupees. Sri Lankans once again voted Dialog as the telecommunication brand of the year for a record 10th year running, and Service Brand of the Year for the second consecutive year, and Youth Choice Service Brand of the Year for the second consecutive year at the Slim People's Awards. We continue to strengthen our market leadership positions in the mobile, home broadband, and pay TV sectors, and further supplemented Dialog's expansive suite of enterprise solutions to digitally transform Sri Lanka's enterprise sector. Today, the Dialog Group continues to act as a beacon, signaling an era of greater connectivity, inclusivity, empowerment, and digital transformation. The company forayed into new digital frontiers, spearheading technology firsts in South Asia and Sri Lanka, and connected people to the world, while consistently remaining at the forefront of innovation. And helped enable a cashless Sri Lanka. Dialog continues to set the precedents for excellence with world-class infrastructure, our efforts in maintaining our status as the fastest network have made Dialog the clear leader in the Open Signal Mobile Experience Awards. We strive to serve traditionally marginalized groups across Sri Lanka. And endeavored to ensure that no child is left behind in continuing their education. We took the initiative to help our fellow Sri Lankans during their greatest hour of need through the remarkable combined efforts of the API Dialog family. We will continue to play our role in supporting the nation emerge stronger. We continue to be the country's prolific promoter of sports through our unyielding support, and we remain committed to believing in and empowering the country's champions of tomorrow, as we have done over the years. Service from the heart continues to be our #1 core value, placing customer experience and service delivery excellence at the center of our work ethic and corporate ethos. We are home to a 3,000 strong API Dialogue family, committed to serving from the heart and demonstrating responsible leadership. We are driven by passion and uncompromising integrity to deliver exceptional performance. Together we advance as one team and champions of change to revolutionize Sri Lankan lives and enterprises. Humble in victory and united during challenges, the API Dialogue family continues this journey to deliver the future today. A future
Okay, so without taking much time, I now invite Tarakshi Babasara to deliver the vote of thanks.
Good evening, everyone. It's an honor for me to do the word of thanks on this occasion. First and foremost, on behalf of the StudPro 5.0 committee, I would like to thank Mr. Vipula Lianarachi and Mr. Dhammika Kadwe for a brilliant session on today's topic. It was very informative and I hope everyone took advantage of the opportunity. I would also like to express my heartfelt gratitude to everyone on the IEEE Young Professionals Sri Lanka team for engaging in and supporting us on this occasion. Finally, a big thanks to our wonderful audience for joining us today. I hope this session adds value to your journey ahead. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.
Thank you, Tarakshi. So we have come to the end of this unique session. Thank you very much for joining. Stay safe and have a good day. Thank you.